So, Lone Rider, and just came across something which, oh man, this blew my mind. Apparently, there's a author out there named Andy Duncan, and he recently did a article or a piece he wrote where he described Lord of the Rings, J.R.R. Tolkien's Lord of the Rings, as racist. Because, are you ready for this? It was racist against orcs. Yeah. Fictional characters that don't exist and within the mythology of the story were created specifically to be the servants of evil. So yeah, of course they're bad. This is the type of thing that I guess we were working around to, where people were trying to, inject modern contemporary political concerns or nitpicks into fictional and fantasy and sci-fi entertainment and other things. I mean, and it really makes me wonder if these people. I understand this Duncan individual is apparently a writer himself, but it does make me wonder if these people understand the purpose behind entertainment. It's to entertain, and in particular, if you're talking about spectacular entertainment, something that's not written in a realistic setting or time, something that's fantasy or science fiction that takes place in outer space or on other planets, or in a world where there are dragons or elves or dwarfs or orcs, or where there's like a James Bond movie where there's a spy and a villain in a mountaintop lair, and these things are supposed to be over the top and fantastical and escapist. It's basically, you take a break from, the crap you're reading in the newspaper and the crap they're talking about on the TV, and you take a detour for half an hour or an hour or however long the movie or film or story is, into a world where you can have an adventure or a stylized battle between good and evil or whatever. But it's basically, it's a break from the mundane, and it's entertainment. And people don't turn to the entertainment to see more of the crap that they're trying to get away from in the real world, right? If I turn on, I don't know, if I go to watch a James Bond movie, right? I don't want them to stop in the middle of the car chase and have a lecture about social justice or about healthcare or foreign policy or the wall or whatever, right? Whatever I think of those issues, I may agree with some of them, I may disagree with others, but the point is that I just don't want that in my James Bond movie. I just want a car chase, right? And it's understandable that fans go to see, whether it's the Lord of the Rings movies or whether it's a James Bond movie or whether it's some sci-fi, like Star Wars or Star Trek, the X-Files. People go to see this, and they don't want this crap in there. But they also don't want this crap in the overall social perception of the story, even if it's not in the story. If people try to sort of retcon it in or put it in retroactively by saying, well, that's what they really meant, right? There's a hidden message in there. It's bigoted, or it's this or that. And it's one thing if you're just raising that as idle speculation, but the problem is these days there's no such thing as idle speculation or fan theories anymore, at least when it comes to a lot of people. It seems that rather than sit there and debate the Kessel Run in Star Wars, or talk about, well, how come Agent Scully in the original X-Files episodes carried a pistol that was of a particular caliber that was not authorized for on-duty FBI agents, or how come, there was an X-Files episode where they were supposed to use Napier's Constant to open a door, but the number they typed into the keypad wasn't actually Napier's Constant, stuff like that. The kind of nitpicking stuff fans are known for. But then you have people who put in political theories and ideological theories that the authors either never intended or that just wasn't supposed to be there. And they don't necessarily put them in the show. Sometimes if there's a remake or if there's a sequel, sometimes people do try to put their own agendas into the material. But even if the actual program of the book or the movie or the show or whatever remains unaltered, if the way it's discussed, if people attribute meanings to it that aren't in there, then you have changed it in a way, right? You've changed what it means to people. And I don't know about you, I just want a little bit of entertainment, right? I watch, whether it's the X-Files or whether it's the Star Trek or whether it's Breaking Bad. I mean, if I'm going to sit down and watch a TV show, part of that may just be because I enjoyed a TV show, but part of it is also, it's a little bit of a break from the mundane, right? And I don't know about you, I'm getting really tired of everybody saying that everything is this and that, and there's a lot of words that end in "ist," whether racist or sexist or whatever. Everything has some kind of a political, moral implication, and can't just be a good story for its own sake, right? And I understand hearing that if you're watching, let's say, the evening news or reading a newspaper. But when you tune into Middle Earth or a galaxy far, far away, or the Starship Enterprise, or the Adventures of Mulder and Scully, do you really need that crap? Is that why you really go there, right? Or are you just looking for a little bit of entertainment? From a break from that very sort of crap, because you've had it up to here and you just want to, chill and have a good time and enjoy a good story and an adventure and, the tale that has to be told. And the fact that it's one thing if people are going to go through a movie or a book or whatever and say, oh, there's this inconsistency, or this particular scene wasn't good, or, the plot doesn't make sense. That's what a critic should be talking about, right? If you're talking about, the actual story, right? You should be talking about the story, not motives you may or may not attribute to an author that's been dead for like 40 years, because that's just not cool. He's not around to defend himself, and you could pretty much put whatever words you want into his mouth, and the only thing really stopping people from believing it is if they've actually read the story or seen the movie or whatever it is, and have enough common sense to realize that you're full of crap. And something like this, I honestly believe, the most polite way I can say it is I think it's full of crap. I'm not a huge Lord of the Rings fan. I saw the movies a few years ago. I recently rewatched them, I guess about a year ago. I saw them when they first came out on video, and then I recently rewatched them, like I said, about a year ago. Decent movies, they hold up, but I'm not a huge Lord of the Rings fan. But that said, we've seen this in other areas. We've seen this in other forms of entertainment. And, it's like, at what point do we say it's entertainment, it's make-believe? It's not supposed to reflect your political mores, whatever those are. Hell, maybe it's even supposed to be an escape from them, right? And here's the thing. This kind of divisiveness and looking for isms everywhere, it has an effect on the real world. We've known that for a long time. It makes people divided. It makes people, it makes it harder for people to talk to each other about the things they can agree on. And it basically breeds conflict. But now imagine how much worse it is to have that same sort of attitude filtering into either your entertainment or interpretations of what that entertainment is supposed to represent. Because then it's not only like they're poisoning the real world outside your front door, they're also poisoning the books or the movies or whatever you might turn to get a little bit of a break from that. And that's just not cool, right? I don't know about you. I'm reading some fiction or watching a good movie or a good TV show. I don't go there for that. And again, if they were talking about the movie or the TV show or the book, and they were talking about it in such a way, they were talking about the actual content of the story, the characters, the dialogue, that would be great. That's not what they're talking about. They're talking about something that's not even in there, and that they're basically projecting onto the author or the scriptwriter or whomever. And like the old saying, no one fears thieves so much as the thief. You know, maybe it's the same way. Maybe if you see bigots everywhere, maybe what it really means is you're bigoted. I don't know. But one thing I sure as hell know is that it's kind of hard to say that the Lord of the Rings is, right? It's just a good, simple story about good versus evil. And I can't get myself all that worked up about the civil rights of orcs, who are a fictional species that was created specifically to be like the evil, massacring, pillaging army of the villain, right? Like, what is wrong with these people? Leave our entertainment alone, all right? And stop trying to say something like Lord of the Rings is a racist. First of all, if you know anything about Tolkien, he specifically was very much against racism. In particular, he was very much against the most prominent racist regime that was around during his lifetime, which was the actual Nazi regime in Nazi Germany in the Second World War. He had served in the First World War, and I think he was considered for service in the Second, and they decided not to take him or something, but he was in the First World War, and there's a quote from him somewhere saying that by 1918 he lost like all of his friends except for one because they were all dead. Yeah, this guy had a very keen sense of right and wrong, and he definitely was on the side of right as far as being against racism. So to then turn around and say he's racist, the story is racist, it's like this guy specifically spoke out against one of the biggest, most prominent and well-known racist regimes ever, the Nazis. So, like, now you're going to say he's racist for what? To get a couple points on Twitter? It's like, I don't understand this mentality. I guess it's easy to attack somebody after they're dead. I mean, they can't go back and argue with you. But fortunately, you know, fans can look at his work and be like, does it really mean what those people are saying it means? And no, it doesn't. And, you know, it's just distasteful to do. It's a cheap shot, and I wish people wouldn't do this. And, you know, it's kind of funny. If you think about it, if I think about the books, movies, TV shows that I grew up with that were important to me, and you had to ask me what the specific politics of those characters were, whether, you know, in general, are they Democrats or Republicans, or would they be if that was relevant, or, you know, what do they think of foreign policy or healthcare or this or that. I might be able to extrapolate because of things that came out about the characters in the story, but generally speaking, if I look at the main characters of the stories I grew up with, whether on film or TV or in written form, hell, throw in comic books there too, because I read those also. Any of these fictional characters that I grew up reading about, that I grew up watching, if you had to ask me what their politics were specifically, you know, I couldn't tell you really. Like I said, you might be able to extrapolate some things, but generally speaking, I couldn't tell you. And that says a lot. I mean, you think about how stories are written now, how movies are written now, you know exactly where everybody stands on everything. And part of that, it does seem contrived, it does seem shoehorned in, it does seem like it sometimes gets in the way of telling a good story. Canto bite, yeah. But also, it seems as if it's a defense mechanism. Part of it may be trying to say, hey, we tick all the boxes, so say our movie was cool. But part of it may also be because they see other people being attacked as this or that when they really weren't. They just want to make it really clear. So it's like, hey, look at me. I just want you to know I'm not this. Maybe that's why they're so specific about political issues. It could be because, again, they're trying to appeal to a new way of looking at things that we've seen lately. It could be they're trying to push their own political agenda at the expense, usually, of good storytelling and, you know, a good coherent story. Or it could be they're actually trying to, like, signal to everybody that they've complied. So, hey, look, don't attack me. I'm not one of them. Maybe that's it. Maybe this is contributing to that as well. I don't know. But all I know is it's damn unfair to Tolkien, who isn't around to talk about it. And yeah, obviously the man's work speaks for him, right? You write a good story, it should stand in and of itself for itself and for what you stood for, because it's going to reflect elements of what you believe, whether you put them in there intentionally as a political thing or not. I mean, all fiction is a selective representation of reality, essentially. You choose what goes into it. So in some ways, it's going to reflect the worldview of the author or the writer or whatever. But at the same time, to just say, oh, that's racist, or that's this, or that's this, when it's clearly not. I mean, for Pete's sake. Orcs? You want me to get all worked up about orcs? And there you go. That's, if you want to know how you ruin entertainment, that's how you ruin it. And I just think it's cool that people are talking about this. I'm talking about it myself because I heard it from somebody else, and they heard it from somebody else, and so, hopefully the word will spread and people will be like, yeah, whether you like The Lord of the Rings or not, or thought they were just really long as movies, whether you enjoy his writing style or not, and I'm going to be honest, I'm not the biggest fan of it. Nevertheless, he did tell a good story. He was a significant personage when it came to fantasy fiction, and without him, there are a lot of things that wouldn't be around today. So, this is a guy who told a good story in good faith, and he doesn't deserve to be smeared 40 years after he's been under the sod as something that he never was, and in fact as something that he was against. I think that's disgusting. And again, if this were just a bunch of fans speculating what if, that'd be one thing. That kind of thing's been going on for eons. But when you have people putting this out there as like some kind of scholarly assertion, or in an essay, like saying it is so. No, it's not so. And all you're doing is further politicizing and breaking down and destroying entertainment and literature and good stories. And I don't know if you know this, but society needs stories, all right? We need good stories. There's a reason that stories with heroic characters have been around since before the Marvel Cinematic Multiverse, since before comic books, since before Westerns, since before the tale of Robin Hood and all that, since before the Arthurian legends, go all the way back to the Iliad and like that. People, if they're going to live together as a group in a society, need heroes to look up to and emulate and say, this is, culturally, it's very important. It's like we can take all of the things that we respect and that we're willing to fight for and that we think are cool and that we value, and we can attach those to a particular character, and that character can represent them. And culturally, this is a significant thing. We need this. We need this. It's essential, essentially, to the mental health of a culture, to the psychological health of a culture, to have these kind of stories. However you find them, whether it's, science fiction, fantasy, whatever, people need heroes, essentially. And guess what? This type of nitpicking, looking for isms everywhere, is how you destroy heroes, how you destroy the ability to tell a good story, how you destroy something that's been essential to the survival of a culture and of a people and of their enjoyment and their fostering of a certain worldview and everything that they stand for, and also, again, is a fun diversion and a little bit of an escape. And this is how you destroy it, people, by picking it to death with 1,000 cuts, saying, oh, look, there's a bigot here, and there's an ism here, and there's a this there, and a that there. And next thing you know, nobody's comfortable identifying themselves as a fan of anything, because I don't want people to think I'm a bigot, right? And then next thing you know, well, first of all, in addition to doing all of this, you're also essentially cheapening the significance of real racism and real bigotry. I mean, let's be fair. Racism is a bad thing. It's a form of collectivism, and it's a flawed philosophy and a flawed worldview, and it's been responsible for a lot of bad crap over the years. a lot of evil crap. It should be fought. It should be combated. But like the boy crying wolf, you know, if you start calling everybody and their brother a racist, I mean, pretty soon, frankly, people are just going to tune it out. And you've accomplished the opposite of your supposedly stated goal of fighting racism. You've trivialized it. But beyond that, of course, you're also destroying our capacity to tell a good story and enjoy a good story. And it's really hard to say which is worse, trivializing actual racism or destroying the capacity of a culture to perpetuate, good stories. I don't know about you. I grew up with good stories. If I didn't have good stories growing up, there are times when I honestly think that, I would have been very sad. And, there are books that I have read 10 or 20 times. Like I said, I'm not a huge Tolkien fan. But, there are books that I have read, 10 or 20 times that I will gladly read again, that I have specifically put on the shelf and kept there. And there are some books, I read them once or twice and I'll, donate them or something. There are some books I will never give up because I'm always going to want to go back to them and maybe get a little more out of it or just enjoy the experience of the story again. The same thing with, why do you think somebody gets a show on DVD? I own the DVD series of the X-Files. Why? I'm a huge X-Files fan. It's nice to be able to see it whenever I want, but it's also nice to know that it's there whenever I do want to see it. Not, I'll have to maybe get it from Netflix or try and get it from the library or whatever. So, good stories are important. Entertainment is important. This isn't just, people think, it's just pop culture. Yeah, in some respect, yes. But again, all societies need heroes. Go back through history. Go back all the way to the ancient times and look at things like the Iliad and the Odyssey. People have always needed stories like this. They've always found value in them, and they've always enjoyed them. But beyond just the entertainment factor, it's important. It's important to be able to have heroes. And that's what this looking for isms everywhere destroys. It destroys the ability to have heroes. It destroys the ability to tell a good story. And I'm going to be honest, I'm glad I grew up when I did, when this wasn't as much of a thing, because, I shudder to think about the stuff that people are going to have to deal with in the coming years if we don't nip this in the bud. We don't turn our culture around and say this. That's no way to. That's no way to live like that. Looking to tear down and destroy everything of value and everything that everybody finds enjoyable. That's like, what's wrong with you? Lone Rider out.